Chapter 4, Relics. Alright, we in our shower. Well, we're not in our shower, we're in our bathroom. I tied my hair up and gave myself another glance over in the mirror before leaning back against the counter and taking a deep breath. I was certain it would be another exhausting day, and I was already dreading it. Caleb had not been lying when he said he wouldn't take it easy on me. I could fault him for a lot of things, but dishonesty wasn't one of them. Still, I had sort of figured it wouldn't be as bad as he was making it out to be. Like, he was trying to intimidate me a little? Yeah, no. That was wrong. The first few days hadn't been too bad. We worked on meditation strategies, but he'd also done some work to test my stamina, just to see what he was working with. Somehow I expected him to be disorganized, improvising his way through it, but he was quite the opposite. He monitored my heart rate while I jogged in place, asked a ton of questions, and took notes about everything. Dang, so thorough. And he had a keen eye for observation. Day 2 was when he handed me the training schedule, complete with a suggested food plan. A food plan! Apparently, I was deficient in several important minerals, and needed to be sure I was eating my meals on time. I like that she just has all these quotation marks like, apparently I'm blah 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 blah. There was a long rant about it. I tuned him out when he started sounding like my mother. Anyway, increasing my endurance was one of our first goals, and that involved a lot of running laps in one of the outdoor training areas. I learned that nothing could inspire a girl to run faster than being chased by Caleb. Ha 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 ha. He hadn't been amused when I shared that with him. Instead, I got a lecture about how he wasn't chasing me, he was monitoring my progress. Beyond running, we started working on beginning some basic martial arts. He was at least pleased to learn that my brother had taught me some self-defense moves last year, to be on the safe side. Then he teased me for not using them when he had already abducted me. Not that I'd have succeeded, something he also made sure to tell me. He's such a jerk sometimes. In any case, learning how to escape a hold in a gym isn't the same as using it when someone is actually abducting you. The best part about martial arts training was that I sometimes got to hit him. The worst part was that I couldn't hit him hard enough to make a difference. Yet. I was already plotting for the days we moved from practicing form by punching the palm of his hand to actual sparring. Because the first time I won, it would be so very satisfying. And I would win. And gloat. Eventually. 3 days ago, Dr. Sosky cleared me for Psi training, so that added a new element to our sessions. Ugh. I headed back to the bedroom. At first, I avoided it. It was too fancy, especially after spending a few years in a studio flat that didn't even have a proper bedroom. It wasn't in the same style as the parts modeled off my place, which made it a little jarring to walk into it from the living room. I felt out of place in it. It didn't suit me. That's what I thought. But the allure of the massive bed was intense. Was I really going to sleep on a fold-out when this bed was calling to me? Not for longer than one night I wasn't, and after that, I hadn't looked back. I tossed my nightshirt on the foot of the bed and rifled through the small gym bag to make sure I had everything I needed for yet another day of running and learning to kick and punch. And learning to use biokinesis. Not that there was anything I could pack to help with that. Whether it was using my own psi or mimicking Caleb's, it should supposedly come natural to me. Which, well, since I first woke up in the medical ward, I had to admit it felt as if the lid had been completely blown off my psi. I could use it easier than before, but it was like learning any new skill. Using it purposefully as opposed to unconsciously would take time. I tended to catch on to things fast, so I was managing within acceptable parameters, according to Caleb. With a small huff, I hastened to fasten. I fastened the bag and slung it over my shoulder, heading into the living room. It was nearly time to go. Hi. I stopped just outside the bedroom, staring at the intruder sitting on my sofa, reading my books. He noticed me right away and stood, unperturbed. No, please, make yourself at home. Finally. Excuse me? What are you doing here? Yeah, we can be sassy. Enjoying the book?
It was okay. Kind of dry.
So, do I get an explanation for why you're sitting on my sofa when I know I locked my door?
You weren't answering it.
I didn't hear the bell go off?
Maybe it's broken, but I also knocked 3 times.
I was getting dressed, so I guess I didn't hear. Care to explain how you got past the lock?
Yeah, your passcode was mind-numbingly simple. You used something like that at your old place. It's a wonder no one ever broke in.
I've never lived by anyone too impatient to wait for me to answer the door.
I've never lived near someone who had such a simple passcode.
Do you frequently break into other people's houses? Are you Ash from the letter?
I didn't break in.
I suppose I have to concede the door is still in one piece, and now I need to change my code to something more difficult to keep intruders out. The dry tone wasn't lost on Caleb, but he smirked in response.
Good luck with that.
A challenge?
If you wish to see it as such.
Challenge accepted, then. He flashed an amused grin my way, but it faded as fast.
That said, I wouldn't have broken in if you'd answered my damn messages. When you didn't answer the door, I sent 6. In addition to the one I sent before I arrived. I don't like being ignored.
Okay, noted. His eyes shifted away.
I didn't know if you were even alive in here.
And you were so worried you sat on the couch and read a book. Okay, first, I'm not sure what you think I'm doing in my apartment that's so dangerous, but as you can see, I'm alive and well. I appreciate the sentiment, but it wasn't necessary to break in to check on me.
My clairvoyant sphere is ridiculously small. Getting inside your place was the only way to make sure you were okay, since you were ignoring me.
I can't ignore messages I didn't receive. Perhaps you weren't aware, but I still have almost no system access.
What?
Caleb, they never expanded my access from before. I can message the administrators only, which is how I've been sending messages to my parents. That's it.
Those idiots.
He pinched the bridge of his nose, letting out a long sigh. You thought I'd just ignore you like that? It was almost amusing. Caleb shrugged as if it was to be expected.
Not like I'm your favorite person right now.
You don't have to be my favorite for me to not ignore you. Even I can't respond to messages I don't receive.
I'll talk to someone and get internal messages to non-admin reinstated at the very least. It's ridiculous people on your own team can't contact you. Why didn't you say anything before now?
I don't know who to talk to about this stuff.
Talk to me about it. We see each other every damn day.
I don't want to bother you with every little thing that comes up.
It's more bothersome to find out you can't receive messages after I've sent you 6, and spent 20 minutes wondering if you slipped on some soap and broke your neck in your shower!
Fine, fine. Now you know. Man, he is such a mother hen. It's so funny. He's like, I was worried you died in there. I just want you to be healthy and eat your protein and get some sleep. And also, don't die. He could just say he let himself inside because he was worried. Yeah, he could, but will he? No.
If you can't get messages, you don't know there's a meeting this morning and we're about 5 minutes from being late.
Caleb! What? I scrambled for my shoes, glaring at him as I pulled them on. Why did he wait so long to tell me that? Should I wear something more official? What kind of meeting is this?
Don't worry about your clothes. Magnus knows what our schedule is. If he wanted us to look pretty, he should have scheduled it for the afternoon.
Does Magnus usually expect you to look pretty at meetings, Caleb? I mean, I'm not objecting, but I didn't think you to...
Shut the hell up and let's get going.
I'm just saying, I can see the appeal. I understand. He could pretend to be mad about that, but I knew better. Especially because he was getting so much worse at hiding that smirk. I snickered as I followed him into the hall and made a mental note to change my password. So, what exactly is this about again?
I don't have all the details. Seems like it's another last-minute thing. The guard gets pulled in for this type of thing all the time. Sometimes it's just updates on ongoing assignments. No idea why he's including you.
Aren't I a member of the guard?
In training. You're not an active agent yet. You shouldn't have to worry about this stuff at this stage. He should let you focus on finding your footing.
I wouldn't have much training to do without a teacher anyway.
You could run laps without me. Given how much you complain about my presence there, I figure you'd prefer it.
I only complain because you're always shouting at me.
I'm not shouting at you. I'm giving directions. In a loud voice.
So, shouting.
I know you've seen the trainees running, and you know their coaches are 10 times worse than me.
That part was true anyway, but it was still fun to annoy him. Does that mean we're postponing running until after the meeting?
Depends how long it is and what it's about, I guess. But that's the plan.
Got it. I mean, I wouldn't have been disappointed if they canceled training altogether, but I guess I would have to wait and see. I cast a sidelong look at Caleb. He was fidgeting, and his expression was more surly than usual. You really don't know what this meeting is about? He shot me an annoyed look. I held my hands up as if to ward it off. You just seem to be in a bad mood.
I have a bad feeling about it, that's all. I swear, this is an actual assignment involving you.
Do you think it could be? Isn't it way too early?
It is. Which is why that better not be what this is about. You've been a part of Endgame for 5 minutes. You need to focus on learning to use Psi. You don't need this kind of distraction right now.
Well, for now, it's just a meeting.
It's a distraction. And I don't trust those bastards to not shove you in the thick of things while you can still barely use your Psi.
You're the one who said I'm making good progress.
Good progress doesn't mean you're ready for an assignment. 9-year-olds make good progress too, but we're not sending an army of toddlers out to defend the planet.
The comparison to a 9-year-old was a little offensive, but it wasn't like he was wrong. Let's wait until we get there before jumping to conclusions. Sometimes I was surprised by how much Caleb seemed to loathe and distrust his superiors. I really wonder what that's about.
You two are late! Maybe if someone had given our new queen access to the internal messaging system, we wouldn't have been. I tried to reach her all morning and
broke into my apartment because I wouldn't answer messages. As you do.
You know you hate it when Sasuke pulls that on you.
I forgot that he just breaks into places. That's right. I'm half expecting most of his route to just be him, like, in the apartment and be like, hello.
Don't compare me to that jerk. Then don't act like him.
Is breaking into other people's homes a common thing around here?
No, it's just those two. Rooks are weird. There have been occasional incidents of younger knights overshooting targets and ending up in unexpected places. Though I suppose it doesn't count as a break-in if it's unintentional.
What?
It can happen before they get a handle on their abilities. I thought you said we were late. Are we going to have a little chat out here until someone comes to shout at us? Amusing as that would be, I guess we should head inside. The others are waiting.
Magnus was leaning against his desk, balancing a stylus on his upper lip like a proper adult when we entered. Ah yes, I too have been known to be a proper adult at times. He lost focus and dropped it the moment he saw us. Oh, the Queen's Guard is finally here. He stooped to pick up the stylus, placing it on the corner of his desk as he tipped his head to the side. I was beginning to wonder if we should send a search party.
You wanted us to be on time. You shouldn't have scheduled over our training session this morning.
Oh, that's right. You're training in the mornings, aren't you?
I know you didn't forget about our damn training, Magnus. I mean, whatever. Get on with it.
Now, no need to rush things. How are you settling in, Morgan?
Caleb let out a strangled groan as he found a spot near the window. Kill me now! He lacked patience for meetings like this, didn't he? He is a man of action, so meetings are probably the worst thing ever for him. I'm enjoying my time. Thanks for asking. I'm adjusting, or... You know what? Caleb, we just, established, Caleb is not dishonest. So let us also be honest. Do you want me to be honest?
Please do.
It's difficult and it's not enjoyable. Sleeping in a place that isn't home is hard. Having to go for checkups all the time to make sure I'm not damaging my brain is frustrating. And none of this is what I wanted or what I want. I don't like not having system access for the most basic of things. Having to send messages to my parents through a secondary source that reads them first is suffocating. Having my privacy and agency violated makes me question how easily this organization operates outside the normal flow of things without being held accountable.
How harsh.
Caleb is a tough teacher, though I've had worse. I appreciate his methodical approach and way of explaining things. That at least has made things a little easier. Ooh, I like that she was all negative, sassy things, and then she's like, I appreciate my teacher. By the way, teacher, I appreciate you. It hasn't been long, but I can feel myself making progress. And I guess I'm getting used to the quirks of this place.
I'm surprised to hear that you enjoy learning under Caleb.
I didn't say I enjoy it. I appreciate his straightforward approach, that's all.
I was going to offer to switch you over to Ari.
If you were going to make that offer, it should have been from the start. We're not changing the schedule up now to suit your whims, Magnus.
Oh, you don't want me to change, Caleb?
And if you think sucking up to me will make me go easier on you...
If I thought that, I'd have been much more polite to you from the start. That irritating smirk was back, but behind it was something that seemed... almost approving. Nice. I didn't know why airing a list of grievances would garner approval, though. You just said you appreciated his approach. He's like, oh yeah, alright, I'm doing good. Maybe he appreciated the honesty.
You two get along surprisingly well.
Didn't you call us here for a reason?
Of course I did, but there's no harm in speaking with our newest member for a while first. At any rate, I suppose it's time to get started.
He took a seat behind his desk and folded his hands across it. Just like at the last meeting, that playful facade evaporated as he got to the business at hand.
The purpose of this meeting is to update everyone on the emerging situation with relics landing in the hands of civilians on the day side. The rest of you will know this, but since Morgan is new...
Relics? Like... Arayan relics?
Are there any others?
Well, not that I'm aware of, but people don't always mean Arayan items when they say the word relic.
They are exactly what I mean. I assume with your area of study you're familiar with them?
A little. I haven't spent much time on them since, well... It's a frustrating field of study.
Frustrating? How so?
Many known areas of archaeological interest for those studying Arayan civilization are on the night side of the planet. Those outside the domes are largely inaccessible because of the extreme cold. Those that are accessible are restricted, even the few located outside of Delphine's territory. Have we done extreme cold before? I think so. Yes, closer to the edge. I can't remember how to say it. It's like Nocta Gelida or Galida or Galida or something like that. Can't remember. Something something. It's nearly impossible for anyone to get permission to see them. I wasn't interested in something I could never hope to see firsthand.
That's why you wanted to go off-world?
It's part of the reason, yes. Arcalis also restricts many Thalossan and Senecan sites as well due to their locations being inconvenient. It's easier to study many things on Dione.
The major part you've got wrong about all that is the ruins aren't in Delphine only. There are several spots on the day side, and they're dotted through the Twilight Wastes.
We keep the ones on this side under close watch, and not many people are aware of them. The ones in the wastes, well, we try to monitor them. The Nomos as well. They know how dangerous the ruins can be.
But the most prolific source of Arayan artifacts is beneath the surface.
The surface of...
everything. The planet. There's an extensive labyrinth of catacombs that runs under large portions of Arcalis. They were discovered a few decades after colonization.
I think we've done this before as well. Yeah, the underground. Okay, just had to double check.
These connect in many places to Arayan structures and ruins. We know many access points, but not all. We aren't even sure how extensive the labyrinth truly is. We've explored some, but not nearly enough. The access points we know of on the day side are heavily guarded.
And on the night side?
Well, we do our best. Which is to say, they're not guarded well at all, as it's left primarily to the Delphine government so as to avoid unnecessary confrontations.
So what you're telling me is that the Arayan artifacts are more prolific and less secure than everyone has been led to believe until now.
That's one way to look at it.
Based on what you're saying, that's the only way to look at it. It didn't surprise me to learn there were things the public didn't know. Everyone assumed the governments and Endgame kept things from people. It was strange to be in on the secret now. I couldn't help but feel I was hearing something I shouldn't, even though I was a part of all this now.
You look like you're thinking hard about something, Morgan.
No, nothing in particular. So what's happening with the relics?
Every so often, one of these things surfaces and causes some issue, which we have to clean up.
Wasn't the last relic incident 7 years ago? 9, maybe?
It was 5 months ago, actually.
I don't remember any public reports about it. Was it covered up?
Yes, but not by us, as was the one 2 months before.
How often do relic-based incidents happen?
More often than most are aware of, that is certain.
You said the one 5 months ago wasn't covered up by Endgame, but someone else?
It took place on the southern continent of the night side at a Delphinian research facility. We might not even have learned about it if not for New Terra. Here, we only registered a minor seismic event in that area. New Terra reported to us that they recorded a massive energy surge and explosion at the same time. There was a high saturation of array radiation that still has not dissipated from the crater left behind from whatever happened.
Crater?
That was all that was left of the facility.
Was that when Rory and friends escaped?
The Delphine government covered it up. They are notorious for their illicit projects. Illegal study of Arayan technology is a frequent problem. When I looked deeper, I discovered that numerous labs associated with several of their top-secret projects have been destroyed this year, starting from about 9 months ago. The incident 5 months ago was the first that had to do with Arayan technology, but not the last. Since the destruction of the first lab, there have been 7 public incidents involving Arayan technology, the most recent of which was yesterday.
Okay, so maybe it was 9 months ago was the one where Brennan and Rory escaped. And maybe Brennan's on the warpath with all these facilities?
Another one. Where was it this time?
A team in Cerna uncovered it. They were there to investigate what we suspected to be a Crimson associate peddling contraband. Turns out the situation wasn't quite what it seemed. Was Crimson involved at all? Not from what we can tell so far.
What did the team find?
There was a high prevalence of people in one of Cerna's districts exhibiting signs of severe addiction. Hospitals were dealing with an influx of patients with a wide range of physical and mental symptoms. They were delusional, experiencing hallucinations. Some were aggressive and violent. Some were screaming, harming themselves, displaying erratic behaviors. So our agents believed they were going to be seizing another shipment of aporia from Nestor. What they found instead was there were no substances involved at all.
A relic, then?
The epicenter of the Cerna incident was a theater. A relic found there was capable of inducing a hallucinogenic state. The crowd would be exposed to a catalyst of some sort. Once the visual cortex was stimulated, the relic took over, showing a series of dreamlike hallucinations.
That's terrifying.
Extracting data from the nanosystems of those affected has proved difficult, as frequent exposure left many of their systems irreparably damaged. From what I've been able to gather, it stimulated various parts of the brain, including production of serotonin and dopamine. The hallucinations induced an addictive euphoric state. 2 of the team members were exposed for a very short duration. Both are still recuperating in the medical ward. When asked to report on what they experienced, they merely said, everything.
What does that mean?
We aren't sure, and they're not in a state to answer more questions.
You said that was with short-term exposure.
You can imagine the fallout for those who had many repeated exposures.
And where is the relic now?
In our custody, locked away for everyone's safety. The owner of the theater escaped.
Magnus, did you not believe the source of this surge in relics was found last month?
I was wrong. The source is still active, and they seem to have found new methods to distribute their products across...
Hold on. There's someone distributing relics? From where? Relics aren't just lying around. They're supposed to be rare. Even if you say there are more Arraean sites than I was aware of, aren't they all supposed to be on lockdown? No one should have a warehouse of relics sitting around so they can distribute them.
Perhaps not a warehouse full, but we can't deny that Delphine owns some. The Triad nations, too. Perhaps some other nations and city-states. Endgame, of course, has a rather large stock of them in safekeeping. Until this year, relics only occasionally found their way to the underground market.
Is this connected to the destruction of the Delphinian labs?
We can't really say. We certainly assume the source is in Delphine, since that's where we have the least insight, the fewest people on the ground, and the weakest ability to investigate. We have no idea how many relics they possess, the locations where they're kept, what research they're doing.
But someone seems to have breached some of those locations.
It appears to be the case.
How? Surely they're heavily guarded. If even you have difficulty getting that information, then...
A lot of times these labs and agencies studying this stuff spring leaks, and they don't always keep records.
Which can make things like this tricky to track. Sometimes we acquire a relic that can be traced back to an employee of the facility it was taken from. In this situation, that has not been the case. I don't have to tell you how dangerous this is. Addictive hallucinogens and small-scale weapons are one thing, but relics can be so much more than that. The Delphine Research Facility is just one example. In the hands of people who don't know what they're dealing with, relics are a nightmare. Even the ones we think we understand have later shown unforeseen side effects. Just studying them is dangerous, much less trying to use them. And we have no way to counter the effects of relics. We don't know how they work. Often we can't even deactivate them. We can only confiscate them, contain them, and keep them away from the public.
Contain them where? You indicated Endgame has them stored somewhere.
Far away from any human settlements for the most part. There are a few housed here at Cor Solaris. Very, very few.
Don't king ranks specialize in technology? Can't you figure out how they work?
Unfortunately, no. I've tried in the past. Even to me, the inner workings are entirely alien. like trying to speak to someone whose language I can't begin to comprehend or decipher. I have occasionally managed to activate one, never deactivate them, and never have I begun to decipher what I see when I link with them.
Makes them sound more like magic than technology if even a king rank can't handle them.
Perhaps you've heard the saying, Morgan, that any sufficiently advanced technology may as well be magic. Relics, with all their mystery and strange properties, are more or less magic to us if we define magic as science for which we haven't figured out the explanation. As we know the science behind Sci, that means we're merely espers, not wizards. Magic is beyond even our ability to manage.
So what's our role in all this, Magnus? Since relics are too magical for you to handle, what's the plan?
The Moirai will focus all their efforts on this matter. If we learn more about who is distributing the relics, I imagine we will send the guard to deal with it.
Myself included?
That seems unlikely. You are not ready for field work yet. Absolutely not. Perhaps instead you could join the research efforts. My understanding is that our lab has been working to decipher Arrayan writing in an endeavor to work out how to operate relics safely. Most relics are covered in it, so deciphering the language is critical to understanding them.
I'm not a xenolinguist. Though I appreciate the suggestion. I won't be able to help with something like that. If your researchers need specialists, there are people who've been working to translate Arrayan for decades.
Unsuccessfully, it seems.
Which is why I wouldn't be able to help. I can read all 4 dialects of Thalassan, and I'm familiar with the Melano script, and a few other scattered scripts and languages we found evidence of. I know nothing about Arrayan, even the experts don't. It doesn't have any connections to any known language, including ancient Thalassan. As far as we can tell, the 2 cultures are unrelated. That makes deciphering Arrayan next to impossible simply from looking at the relics. Your researchers should study sites where they lived. If there are ruins and structures dotted around, they should be studying there. And looking at things left behind from their day-to-day lives, trying to find connections between...
We don't have the time or ability to reconstruct the entire history of this planet, Morgan. Unfortunate though it may be. And the Arrayan ruins are almost entirely built with the same material relics are constructed from. Studying them is as dangerous as studying the relics themselves. For now, our aim is much smaller than deciphering an entire culture. Stop the spread of relics for the sake of the civilian population.
Just don't look at me to translate them. There have been some attempts to reconstruct a theoretical proto-language, but your researchers should already know about that.
Yes, there's a small dusty corner of our research division working on this somewhere. It's not something that takes much precedence. There's been no forward movement in that area in decades, as you said, which means when something like this happens, we're completely unprepared. And in any case, Ari, I fear there are those who would not be satisfied with our new queen sitting in that dusty corner, working on a fruitless attempt at translating an alien language.
Well, she's sure as hell not ready to be out there on the streets with us.
When the time comes, the entire guard will be mobilized.
So Caleb was right. He knew this council of theirs pretty well, and I hadn't even had the dubious honor of meeting them yet.
She's not ready, Magnus.
The seriousness of the situation may...
The seriousness of the situation is why she shouldn't get anywhere near it.
That isn't your call. When we find the person behind this, we'll need someone with her
inexperience.
He bit out the word through gritted teeth, the scowl on his face deepening.
Or maybe her general reluctance to use her abilities in a meaningful way.
I'm not...
I know what holding back looks like, and it's written all over your face every time I get you to utilize your Psi.
I clamped my mouth shut at that, the sting of that rebuke hitting very close to home. I wasn't trying to hold back. Damn it.
I agree with Caleb on this one. As do I. It's too soon.
I understand your concerns.
Do you? Because the council spent the last 10 years whining about not having a queen rank on the guard. And now that they have one, they're ready to throw her to the wolves like they did last time. What the hell happened to learning from past mistakes?
I shot Caleb a quick look at those words. No one had mentioned the previous queen since my arrival. I somewhat knew the situation since her death was public knowledge. I knew she'd been killed on duty, and she was the most powerful Esper in the organization at the time. Though that didn't save her.
Caleb, I don't believe I need to reiterate that what happens to Morgan is not your call.
That cold edge in his voice was razor sharp as he gave Caleb a dead-eyed stare. Caleb glared back at him.
It should be your call, Magnus. But you won't do a damn thing about it this time either, will you?
He started out of the office.
Leone, it's time for your session. Let's go.
After a split second of hesitation, I jumped up and followed Caleb. None of the others tried to stop us. That went downhill fast. Caleb, wait! I was jogging to catch up to him, but he didn't stop. Rolling my eyes, I picked up the pace. Oh no, the eye rolls are catching. He was so much more charming when he was annoying. Girl's like, uh-oh, I feel a little something after that. Amazing. When I fell into step beside him, he didn't look my way.
You are not ready for field work.
He bit the angry words out as if he expected me to disagree with him. If you're expecting any arguments, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. I'm not planning to volunteer to hunt down people distributing Arraean relics to the general populace.
You're not going to do anything anytime soon if I have anything to say about it.
Do you get to have anything to say about it? Because Magnus... He glared at me, and I stopped, but I noticed he didn't respond. Probably all the answer I needed. He had no say, and he wasn't happy about it. Yeah, nobody in this place has any say. Blech. Caleb's not being happy about the meeting came out multiple times during the training session, mostly in the form of abject crankiness. And he wasn't pleasant to work with when he was cranky, I learned.
That level of output isn't good enough.
I'm doing the best I can.
No, you aren't. You're capable of more than this.
How do you know what I'm capable of?
I watched you take down a building with one of your psi bursts, that's how!
That's not the same as physical enhancement.
You expect me to believe you can produce one of the most powerful psi bursts we've ever recorded, but you can't increase the force of a single punch.
I'm trying.
Try harder!
I glared at him as I hit the punching bag with all the force I could muster.
You're not enhancing. I don't care how hard you can hit with your arm, Leone. I need to see you hitting with your psi.
I said I'm trying! I slammed my fist into the punching bag, letting my psi spiral down my arm to my hand. The punching bag seam split with a pop, revealing the gray filling material. I stood there panting, numbness creeping into my wrist and elbow. Ouch! We were both silent a moment.
Now explain how you did it.
I don't know. I just let the psi energy flow down my arm.
If you don't know how you did it, you won't be able to repeat it. You have to pay attention.
Which would be easier if you weren't shouting at me. How can I focus on anything when I'm so on edge?
You think people won't shout at you in the field? You think they're going to politely shoot at you without putting you on edge first? You have to learn to deal with stressful situations.
I'm sure there will come a time for that. But right now? Today? Because you happen to be annoyed at Magnus? You don't think my emotional state during training will contribute to the level of progress I can make? For instance, feeling frustrated that my trainer is yelling at me non-stop might make it difficult to focus, thus impeding my potential progress.
That was an amusing amount of alliteration for someone trying to tell me off.
Is this where we have a misplaced debate on unintended use of literary devices in everyday conversation? Nice. He exhaled sharply and scoffed.
Hardly.
It felt like the tension eased a little now that we were talking instead of shouting. I gave him a slight smile, trying to lighten the mood further with a little teasing. I'm surprised you know what alliteration is.
Are you serious? I'm not an idiot. And, for the record, I like to read.
Oh? Care to share any literary favorites? He let out an irritated sigh and waved a hand towards my water.
Fine, I get the point. Let's take a break and cool our heads a little. You're about due for one anyway.
Thanks. He gave me a sidelong look as I passed him on my way to where I'd left my water bottle.
But I hope you realize the Council throwing this our way puts a lot of pressure on us both.
I understood his frustration. I did, and part of me wanted to sit down with this council and explain to them I wasn't ready. But I hadn't even seen them and had no way to request a meeting at this point. Besides, I was making progress. It didn't change that I wasn't ready to go search out some kind of relic hustlers or whatever they were. But it also wasn't like we were planning to do that next week. They still hadn't even found the responsible parties. We had time to train more, and panicking over the future wouldn't help anything. I was already getting the hang of tapping into my Psi. My neural enhancements ensured quick processing of the techniques Caleb was showing me. Of course, it wasn't even the lack of know-how when it came to Psi. I didn't know procedures, strategy, or any of the other things one might assume I should. Caleb had given me some reading materials to go through, but I hadn't even gotten to the mission protocol section yet. Would they really send me out on an assignment like this? This council. Their actions and decisions bothered me, and Caleb's implication that Magnus could stand up to them but generally did not. The command structure confused me. Yep. Caleb.
What is it?
Can you tell me more about the council? What's their exact role? There's talk of sending me on an assignment, but I'm still fuzzy on the command structure here. It seems odd.
It is odd. And careless.
Then help me understand. Before I came here, I always thought Magnus was the one in charge of Endgame. I can see it's not as simple as that.
The Council is in charge. They're the voice of authority here. As the highest-ranking Esper in the organization, Magnus is the only Esper on the Council. In a lot of ways, his position is more symbolic than practical. He's supposed to be the voice of Endgame's forces in that room. He used to fight harder for us. But they don't listen, and they outnumber him. I guess he eventually just stopped speaking up.
Why is he the only Esper there?
I guess someone, somewhere, felt we needed civilians at the head of this group, to ensure the decisions being made were for the good of everyone, not just for the good of Espers. You get a bunch of people like us in one place, and everyone assumes if we don't have a leash, we'll take over.
So the council is our leash.
More like they're the ones holding it. In a room with one Esper looking out for the rest of us, you can imagine how much consideration is given to our needs sometimes. They have their priorities, but our well-being isn't at the top of the list.
Does anyone ever see the council? I mean, I'm surprised they haven't wanted to meet me.
You want to meet them?
Not necessarily. I'm just surprised that if they're the ones making decisions, they aren't interested in a face-to-face with someone they put at the top of their Esper forces.
It doesn't matter what your rank is. To them, you're just a pawn. We all are. If that wasn't the case, they wouldn't be so willing to throw you into danger right after finding you. The only one those bastards protect is Magnus, and it's only because they're terrified of what could happen if they don't. That doesn't make him any less a pawn than the rest of us.
What did that mean? I wanted to ask him that and so much more. If the council was like that, why didn't they change how things worked? Though even without asking, I knew you couldn't just change an organization that easily. It was never that simple. I had no idea it would be like this here. But there were some things you couldn't know until you were inside, I guess.
Come on. Break's over. Let's get back to work.
Right. But no shouting this time?
Right. No shouting this time. I promise.
The rest of the training session was more intense than any other one had been so far. He was bossy and cranky, but he didn't shout. Alright, keeps his word. And when I finally replicated what I'd done earlier, mimicking the warm flush of Caleb's side to enhance the kick enough to split another punching bag, I at least got an approving nod and a quick pat to the back of the shoulder. Nice. I couldn't quite deny the satisfaction I got from that small acknowledgement. By the time I made it back to my place, I was tired, sore, and not looking forward to the fact we would be moving to morning and afternoon training sessions going forward. Another indication of how concerned Caleb was about my progress in the face of a looming assignment. After a long shower, I flopped onto my bed and rolled over to stare at the ceiling. I still sometimes wondered how I'd landed myself in this place. There were moments it was all so hard to believe. But things were moving too fast for me to spend much time on it, and it didn't look like it would slow down soon. A notification popped up and I saw a new message from Mum. Smiling, I rolled over to my stomach and opened it up, glad we could talk again, even if it was just over messages like this. For a while, I could push everything else away and focus on something pleasant instead.